I'm refuting is Tamara Ramirez, and her major claim is that euthanasia benefits terminally ill patients. Before I start stating her secondary claims, she mentioned that efforts to legalize the practice have failed since 1992. That's not true because it's legal in 6 states, including California. Her first claim is that patients will benefit from choosing their own method of death. First of all, she did not provide any evidence at all about how they would benefit from choosing their own method of death. Instead, she said that Americans should enjoy a right guaranteed in the European Declaration of Human Rights. I don't know why that's significant because we live in America, not in Europe. And second of all, this is a value claim, not a claim of fact. And third of all, that's not true at all because patients in no way benefit from choosing euthanasia because alternative methods exist. An alternative method would be creative and compassionate caring. I'm a clinical care extender at a hospital, and my main goal is to make sure that efficient care is given to patients because happy patients heal faster. Research in palliative medicine have actually shown that virtually all unpleasant symptoms experienced by terminally ill patients can be relieved with compassionate caring. Also in 1990, the World Health Organization concluded that with the development of modern methods of palliative care, euthanasia is unnecessary. Another alternative would be the proper use of drugs. Whenever patients feel pain, I would report it to the nurse or the doctor right away, and they usually take care of it. In my own experiences, and according to Dr. Jill Wilk, physical pain, with rare exceptions, can be controlled. And a lot of times, doctors prescribe long-lasting forms of morphine, which is used to reduce severe pain. So basically, she claimed that euthanasia is necessary to help patients avoid physical suffering or physical pain. But like I said, physical pain can be virtually eliminated with compassionate caring and proper use of drugs. So we need to focus on killing the pain, not the patient. And this is according to Dr. Richard Hillier. Another thing that I would like to point out is that every year new medical advances are being made, and illnesses that have been thought to have been fatal in the past are now curable. An example of that would be tuberculosis. A long time ago, patients that had TB were considered terminally ill patients. With the new antibiotics and vaccines that we have today, patients can be easily cured. So what seems to be a fatal illness now can be curable in the future, so again, euthanasia is unnecessary. Her second claim is that patients have the right to autonomy. Again, this is a value claim, but she is right. Autonomy is important, but it's never absolute. Personal autonomy has its limits since it denies or violates the freedom of others. There are others that are affected by this, such as friends and families that are left behind, and the healthcare staff involved in the decision-making process. Also, while recognizing the importance of patient autonomy, voluntary euthanasia poses serious risks to society as a whole, since voluntary euthanasia can lead to involuntary euthanasia. Holland was the first modern nation to legalize euthanasia. Well, what began as a few extraordinary cases has now become routine. It can be given to handicapped individuals and even those who are suffering from mental illness. According to the Remmenlich report commissioned by the Dutch Ministry of Justice, there were over 3,000 deaths from euthanasia. In the Netherlands in 1990, more than 1,000 of these were not voluntary. So basically, euthanasia gives freedom to some patients, but it denies freedom to others. Her third claim was that terminally ill patients hold the power of choice. Yes, this is true. Patients are the most important members of the healthcare team, and they control what happens to their bodies. But patients, especially the terminally ill ones, they're vulnerable and they don't know, they don't have the skills or the knowledge to evaluate their own symptoms, and they may be while suffering not from physical pain but from depression and anxiety. According to the World Health Organization, patients that seek euthanasia actually suffer from depression or a false sense of worthlessness, which may affect their judgment. In a survey conducted in Oregon, USA, 66% of people who requested euthanasia did so because they didn't want to be a burden on their families. Also, when patients choose euthanasia, they're not holding any power because they're giving most of the power to their doctors. Patients generally decide in favor of euthanasia on the basis of information given to them by the doctors, information such as their diagnosis, prognosis, and treatments available. This information may be incorrect because the diagnosis may be mistaken, and the prognosis may be misjudged, and the doctor may be not aware of recently developed medicine. In 2001 interview with Dr. Creon Evers, a Dutch physician and former supporter of euthanasia, said that whenever she brought up the subject of euthanasia to her patients, 9 out of 10 times they would request for it, but when she changed her mind about euthanasia and started to promote good palliative care, she never talked to them about euthanasia at all, and so no one asked for euthanasia anymore. Her fourth claim was that palliative care is unavailable to patients. The evidence that she provided was inaccurate because she simply restated her claims. She did not give any example of how it is unavailable to patients. Hospice and palliative care programs actually exist across the United States and are readily available to patients. According to the Journal of Palliative Medicine, hospice has grown into a business that served over 1 million Medicare beneficiaries for more than 3,300 providers in 2008. Also, palliative care is not only provided in hospitals, it can also be provided in patients' homes, hospice centers, and nursing homes or other long-term care facilities. According to the Journal of Palliative Medicine, over 90% of hospitals in the United States have adopted the palliative care program in 2014. To conclude, we need to recognize that requests for euthanasia are necessary because alternative methods do exist, and the search for better therapies continue. We also need to realize that no one really wants to die, and thousands of people around the world are being killed each year without request or consent, and this needs to be stopped because it can lead to more and more killing. Thank you. I didn't look into this.
All right, well, the proposition's labeled. You go through a series of secondary claims that I think monitor or mimic the claims that the advocate's presenting. You challenge the first point on the need. You make an argument that says it's a value argument to suggest that this right of autonomy exists. And then you kind of press it a little bit on whether or not we need to follow the guidelines of Europe. And I think there's a good argument to be made here that there maybe are some value arguments that are applicable here, but this is not the place for those particular arguments. Now, the question about what alternatives are available, I like the idea that you have from the very beginning that compassionate caring is an effective alternative that eliminates the need for any of this, and there's no reason that they have to lose their autonomy simply because they are ill, because there are ways in which they can be addressed. And you focus primarily on palliative care, which I think is nicely developed early on, and then you've got an excellent argument in the last point that kind of contradicts the position the advocate said that suggests that this is not really readily available, when in fact you suggest it is widely available. So you've got a good counterclaim on the first point. It's very nicely developed. I don't know that everything that the advocate talked about is responded to here, but I do believe that you have the right argument on this particular point. On the autonomy issue on the second point, I do think there's again, we're dealing with a value argument here, and your position is that it's not an absolute, which I think is reasonable. You point out that there are friends and family involved in the process. I like the counter argument on social risk, that ultimately voluntary euthanasia becomes involuntary euthanasia. And you've got a nice example that you use to illustrate that particular point. So I think that you could develop that a little bit more. The third point on the choice issue, I think, is also a good point because it responds to whether or not there is a legitimate need here. I do think that sometimes you're rushing through the information here, and so it's less clear as to what your argument is as a consequence. And that happens in a couple of other places. So I think that because you're rushing so frequently that we sometimes miss the declarative statement. Even though you eventually make the argument and support that argument, it's a little bit harder to follow than it ought to be, and you need to slow down for those declaratives a little bit so that they will be clear. And like I already said on the fourth point, I thought you did an effective job responding to that issue. All right, thank you.